The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam apprehensions at the time of a
صلى الله عليه
storm.
وسلم.
Sayyida Aisha radiyallahu anha relates that whenever a strong wind bringing dense clouds started blowing, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi
صلى
wasallam
الله عليه
face
وسلم.
turned pale with the fear of Allah. He became restive and would go in and out with perturbation, perturbation, and would recite the following prayer. O my Allah, I ask of thee the good out of this wind, the good out of that which is in this wind, and the good out of that which is in the outcome of this wind. I seek refuge in thee from the evil of this wind, from the evil out of that which is in this wind, and from the evil of out of that which is the outcome of this wind. She says, and further, when it began to rain, signs of delight appeared on his face. I said to him once, O Prophet of Allah, when clouds appear, everybody is happy as they foretell rain. But why is it that I see you so much perturbed at that time? He replied, O Aisha, how can I feel secure that this wind does not portend Allah's wrath? The people of Ad were punished with the wind. They were happy when they beheld the gathering dense clouds, believing that they brought rain, but actually those clouds brought no rain but utter destruction to Ad. The Prophet
صلى
ﷺ
الله عليه
was
وسلم.
obviously referring to the following verses of the Quran. Then, when they, Ad, beheld a dense cloud coming toward their valleys, they said, here is a cloud bringing us rain. Nay, but it is that very calamity which you did seek to hasten, a wind wherein is grievous penalty, destroying all things by commandment of its Lord, and morning found them, so that naught could be seen, save their dwellings. Thus we treat the guilty folk. I don't know why this book is translated in Shakespeare in English. Why couldn't they translate it in easy English? But anyway, look at the fear of Allah in the heart of a person who is the best of all creation. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in
صلى
spite
الله عليه
of a
وسلم.
clear verse in the Quran that Allah would not punish the people so long as the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was with them.
هذا
He has so much fear of Allah in him that a strong wind reminds him of the punishment awarded to the people in the past. Now let us peep into our own hearts for a moment. Although we are fully saturated with sins, yet none of the unusual phenomena with earthquake, lightning, etc. arouses the least fear of Allah in our hearts, and instead of resorting to istighfar or salah at such times, we only indulge in absurd investigations. Whenever you hear the news of tsunami or earthquakes or pandemic or stuff like that, we must recite astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. We must recite Quran more and more, offer prayers more and more, ask Allah's forgiveness so that Allah may protect us from the calamities, from natural disasters, etc. So it is a good opportunity for us to repent, to turn toward our attention towards Allah, and to avoid sinning and the environment of sinning, and to become more closer to Allah. This is a great opportunity. Similarly, whenever we hear stories of those areas where there is war and people are being killed and people are being died, we should be thankful to Allah. We are living in a country, living in an area where there is which is not a war zone, and where we have so many freedoms, so many opportunities, which we take for granted. So you have yourself seen the condition of Afghanistan, what kind of life they are living there, how difficult and how harsh it is to live in that area. You have witnessed it with your own eyes. So, uh, when Allah has given you the opportunity to live in a first world in a country, and there are so many facilities which you enjoy, but many of the people of the world do not have those facilities, that kind of education, that kind of resources, then you should make use of those facilities as to the best of your ability in order to first of all practice Islam and then spread the message of Islam. Uh, According to a hadith, Muslims are discouraged to live in non-Muslim lands, but they can live there for two reasons. First of all is trade, because for the purpose of trade you are living in that land for temporary uh, reason. You are not living there forever. You are just moving around, coming back and forth for business. And second is that if you are going to live there permanently, then it is your job to do dawah work, to call people towards Islam. But before calling others to Islam, we have to practice Islam ourselves too, so that we can set a good example. If my own clothes are not clean, how can I tell other to clean their clothes? So we have to be careful.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it is a responsibility on our shoulders when we are, especially in non-Muslim lands. It becomes more of our responsibility to present ourselves in the best of manners, because whatever behavior we will show, people will judge our religion based upon our own conduct and actions. So,
Hmm.
if we are honest, if we are truthful, and if we are hardworking, dedicated, and if we contribute in the society in which we live in, if we pay the taxes, if we don't cheat, if we don't lie, if we don't steal, and if we put up with our commitments, if we meet our commitments, and if we don't break our promises, then the society will judge Islam as a whole as a religion which teaches truth and honesty. However, if the case is the opposite, then obviously people will um, blame the Islamic teachings for that, and that will be giving bad name to our Creator, to the Prophet, as well as to the Quran and other Islamic sources. That is not
Hmm.
at the day of judgment. How will we face Allah and how will we face our Prophet if we do not present Islam properly through our conduct? So, to the best of our abilities, we have to uh, improve our character and improve our behavior, and
Yeah,
so
makes
that
sense.
we make and when we do good actions, some people, some foolish people may call it that he is so old fashioned, he is so foolish, he is living in the 12th century. Why doesn't he drink? Why doesn't he enjoy? Why doesn't he go to the clubs? But eventually, if we do good actions and prevent from sin, the environment which we live in slowly and gradually starts transforming to be a better environment. So, for example, you may know this fact that there are so many accidents because the drivers are drunk.
Hmm.
But if uh, people start following Islamic teachings, even if they don't revert to Islam, but still they start practicing what Islam teaches us, and they avoid alcohol, then maybe 80 or 90% of accidents will not occur.
Yeah, that
So,
makes sense.
yeah.
Hmm.
So this will improve the society as a whole. This will improve the society as a whole. So even if a person does not believe in Islam, but if he practices Islamic teachings, he will become a better person. So, in the modern world today, especially in the Europe and America, there was a analysis by some people that 160 or more than 100 laws and rulings have been adopted by the non-Muslims in their societies and in their countries, and they have taken more than 100 laws have been taken from the times of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu. So, for example,
Mm.
the concept of welfare state, that the state will look after the poor people of its nation. This concept was first of all introduced nationwide or on a state level by Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu. It was the first in the history of mankind. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, when he was the leader of Muslims, then he uh, regulated stipends
Yeah.
to people who are poor, who who are below poverty line, who cannot manage all of their expenses on their own. And every child who was born, he was given uh, stipends or allowances till he reaches to the age when he starts eating food and starts walking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there are many other things. For example, the Department of Police, it was introduced by Sayyidina Umar. Before that, there was no police. There was only army and civilians. That's the end of it. There were spies, obviously, but the Department of Police, which regulates the code of and conduct of and social order of a society, that department was introduced by Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu. And there are many other things which were okay. Also, it was the policy of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu to give very high wages to the judges, because he knew very well that if a judge is easily influenced by the rich, if he can be bribed by the rich, then he can manipulate the decision. And if there is no justice in the society, that society will collapse easily. Therefore, a judge has to be strong enough and wealthy enough so that he cannot be influenced by other people that easily. So he gave very high wages to the judges.
Yeah, the judges are supposed to be like independent or have good decision making to be one.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, they have to be independent. So there have been many times when Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Ali, even when they were the leaders, they were called, even though they had a lot of, even though Muslims were uh, a superpower at that time, and they were leaders of that superpower. But still, there have been stories that when they were called upon by the judges in their court because of the complaints of any person, they will present themselves as common citizens, and they were treated as such. So once in the court, I think it was the judge who called Sayyidina Umar or Sayyidina Ali as Amir al Mu'mineen. Amir al Mu'mineen means leader of the believers. This was the title of the Khalifa, the Caliph, the leader. So when he said Amirul Mu'mineen, such and such is the thing, the Sayyidina Umar replied, "You have this is the first unjust thing which you have done. Call me Umar. Do not call me a leader of the believers here at this time. I have presented myself as a common man. I'm not here as the leader of Muslims." So there are many incidents. Once, do you know about Sayyidina? There was another Umar, uh, Umar bin Abdul Aziz. Umar bin Abdul
No.
Aziz, yeah, Umar. So after Sayyidina Ali, the Caliphate of Islam turned into monarchy. So
Ah,
there were no caliphs anymore, but there were Muslim monarchs, Muslim kings. The first Muslim king was Sayyidina Mawiyah radiallahu anhu. And from his descendants, there was a person who became a king. And he was a righteous, honest, pious king. His name was Umar bin Abdul Aziz, rahmatullah alayh. And Umar bin Abdul Aziz once, uh, the Muslims won a battle. And when Muslims won a battle, there was war booty which arrived, which they collected. And in that
interesting.
and in that war booty, because whenever in ancient times, and in present times also, whenever wars are won, the enemy there are belongings of the enemies. So all of those belongings go to the state. So the war booty was collected, and inside that war booty there was perfume. There was perfume too. So when that perfume was being weighed in the scale, that how much it is, so that it could be distributed equally among the Muslims, Sayyidina Umar bin Abdul Aziz, who was the leader of Muslims at that time, who was the king, he closed his nose with his fingers so that he couldn't smell that perfume, because it was not his possession. He was the king who was responsible to distribute that perfume to the Muslims equally, because all of the Muslims participated in the battle. So it was their right. This is the level of taqwa. This is the level of fear of Allah which he had in his heart. That he did not want to even smell the perfume, even from afar, which was not his own belonging. Are you getting my point?
Mm-hmm.
And imagine, he was the leader of Muslims, and Muslim land was equal to two continents at that time. All of the Arabia, the Africa, and some part of the Asia even. Because in his time, India, or major part of India, was also in his kingdom. It was under the governance of Muslims. And even some areas of China, and obviously Afghanistan, and some parts of Persia or Iran were also there. But well, I think the whole of Iran was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Shia development is has been happened later on in Iran.
Oh,
Previously, Iran was under the Sunni
some,
rule. Yeah, it under the Sunni rule.
mm-hmm.
So Anyway, they were leader. He was leader. He was the king of such a vast land, and present day countries are not large enough that the whole continents come inside those countries. No, not at all. But still, he was repairing the roof of his house, which was a mud house, with his own hands. He was living in a mud house, in a hut, not in a palace.
Dang.
And he was repairing his wall, his roof with his own hands. This was the condition. And then when he became the king, he told his wife, either I will divorce you, or if you want to remain my wife, you have to give all of your jewelry to the state, because your father and your uncle, who were kings, remind you, the king of Sayyidina, the wife of Sayyidina Umar bin Abdul Aziz, rahmatullah alayh, was the daughter of a king. She was the granddaughter of a king. She was the niece of a king. So his family were full of kings and princesses. She was such
Mhm.
a rich lady with that kind of lineage. She became the wife of Sayyidina Umar. And Umar bin Abdul Aziz was a very lavish kind of princely kind of person before he became the king. But once he became the king, the responsibility of governing the Muslims was so huge and so immense that he overnight became the most pious person, God fearing, and humble person. And he sold all of his, and he gave all of his belongings to the state, because his clan, the Banu Umayyah, the Umayyads, they had snatched the lands of Muslims, of their nation, in an unjust manner. So they were corrupt officials, actually, and they were hoarding all of the wealth of and all of the taxes of the civilians for their own benefit, which was wrong. And Umar bin Abdul Aziz knew that this is wrong. That is why he just gave back all of his possessions once he became the king and once he got the authority. And he ruled the lands for 2.5 years only. And
Interesting.
he was poisoned by his own relatives, because though they were very angry, because they believed that Umar has taken all of our belongings, given to the state, given back to the people. That is wrong. That is why they were angry, and that is why they poisoned him. So after 2.5 years, he died at the age of 42 or something. He was a young man, he was not an old person, but he was very wise. And when he died, even the Christians started crying, because he was so just and so honorable and so kind to his citizens. Even the Christians cried that now our just king has died. This was the code of conduct, this was the character of Muslim rulers of that time. They
That's pretty
were
good.
they were bad kings, but they were also good kings also. And those good kings, you know about Salahuddin.
Yep.
Yeah, Salahuddin. Even the Christians praise him because of his chivalry, because of his kindness to his enemies and those who have been conquered by him. Even though the
Hmm.
Crusaders were so cruel that they shed Muslim blood so much, to that extent that the streets The streets of Muslim lands were full of blood. There have been a lot of bloodshed done by the Crusaders. But when Salahuddin won against them and ended the Crusades for good, he never took his revenge against the conquered people. He just freed them. Even he freed the captives, giving ransom from his own pocket. He spent his own
Really?
money. Yeah, he spent his own money for those who were not able to give ransom money. So he would spend from his own wealth.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, he was also a king, just king. And when he died, he had nothing. He even his servant, his servant sold one of his swords or something to buy a coffin. What do you call it?
Often.
Coffin, a coffin for him. He didn't have his he didn't have that much money to buy a coffin. So he sold one of his swords or something, one of his belongings, to buy coffin for him. And he was a king. He spent all of his life in the battlefield, living a very hard life for the sake of the supremacy of Islam.
Mhm.
This was the character of our kings and our leaders at that time. And do you know anything about Mullah Umar? Have you heard about him?
A little bit.
In Mullah Umar in Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, no, no, yep,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. I saw the picture of his house.
Mhm.
The picture of his house uh, after his death on Facebook. Someone posted the picture. That was one wooden bed and
Mhm.
some books and one small, um what you may call it, a cupboard, or no, small chest, one small chest, and that's the end of it. And it was a mud, it was a hut, it was not a proper concrete home, it was a hut. And these were all the belongings which he had, even though he ruled Afghanistan. This So this was his conduct.
Mhm.
And he has been in front of, he was very near to the American base in Afghanistan, and they were unable to find him all those years. He was very near to them, within the reach of some footsteps.
Mhm.
This is what is called Allah's help. When Allah wants to preserve or protect someone, then Allah protects in this manner. Even before their eyes, they couldn't find him. They found that guy, the Iraqi guy,
Saddam.
Saddam Hussein, and they found Gaddafi of
Mhm.
Libya, but they couldn't find Mullah Omar because Allah did not want them to find him, because the whole nation supported him and they knew that he is a brave, honest person. Even the enemies acknowledged this. He was a just person. So this is the thing. All right. Wish you best of luck. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum